It's crazy that you say that, and almost now as we'll get into your lifestyle and the choices that you've made have allowed you to travel just a little bit more, but you haven't wasted that time. And if anyone wants to hear Adam's stories, we're going to do a late night show at some point. Share some of these bad boys with people, man. But talk to me about how you've integrated traveling and actually turned it into a positive for your business, because when you were explaining this to me, and I've watched a couple of your interviews, I've watched you do obviously like the 5 a.m. club, and you've got your name out there on social media. I love tuning into your stuff. One thing that I said that I noticed with you is, like I said, you're able to go on holiday, but make the most of that time and actually use that time to bring back and actually leverage up your business. So do you want to tell people a little bit about that?
Definitely. I think one of my keys to success is every time I do something in life, whether I travel or whether I do this, I make sure I learn or get a return out of that situation or that journey that I'm on, whether they're short, whether like something like traveling that we want to focus on. So traveling, for example, like my service accommodation business that we're going to touch on in a minute, is essentially born out of traveling. So I traveled, stayed in Airbnb, stayed in different hotels, different apartments, and in 2014 I think it was, where I met someone who's running an Airbnb in Dubai, and I spent quite a few going back and forward to Dubai, and I stayed with the same guy, and I built up a good relationship with him, so that allowed me to think, oh, okay, it's a good way to get to network with more people, get to know more people. That's why Airbnb was initially born, like where you can be with locals and stay in apartments which are local to people. And so essentially I did that, and that was that helped my passion of turning into a business where I said, I can come back and do something like that, because I was already investing in properties, buying buy-to-lets, just as soon as I graduated back in 2013. That was one aspect where I brought that idea back and I said, look, I'm going to do this, which here I am, I've done it, right? Second bit is, for example, raising finance or getting investors. So whenever I travel, when I would go somewhere, I tell people what I do. It's an overused word, but it's not used enough, as in physically you're not doing, actually people are not doing it, because whether it's their mindset, whether they're shy. You want to do that. Like, as I said, I'm traveling tomorrow. The first person I met that's sitting next to me on the plane, I'll tell them I run apartments, I run service accommodation, I invest in property. Not to brag about it, you want to tell them this is what I do, like you would say, I'm an engineer, So it's the same way. And I'm not thinking that he's going to be my investor. I'm just telling him because I want to build that relationship, just because either I may end up in the same hotel as him when I land. I might end up going for a drink with him, or just become friends. Yeah. My whole passion about networking, I did not know what networking was initially. For me, it was like, oh, I just want to have friends. I want to have this. I want to have a good circle when I was 20, because I never had any friends when I was young, really young. So that allowed me to network into a business field, and essentially naturally get into raising finance and investors and just growing my social circle.
I love that. You touched on something there that is so true. In terms of like back in your early years, you network for the sake of networking. Like you have friends for the sake of, obviously you don't want to live a lonely life. You got to have friends in it. But obviously these friends might have come from different backgrounds. And then you've just taken that and you've realized that as whatever aspect of your life, whether you're sitting on a plane, whether you meet someone in a shop, whether me and you are talking right now, that person has a background, that person has a story, and can you connect and can you help one another? And by sharing your story and sharing what you do, that could turn into an investor, a client, someone who stays at one of your apartments. I mean, it's incredible. It's
exactly.
Incredible.
And one of the key things about these conversations is, yes, tell them what you do, but ask them what their story is.
100%.
Like, people forget that. You really get into it. You're like, oh, I want to tell them I'm a property investor, right? Yes, you are, but say, look, what are you traveling? Or do you travel here a lot? Or do you go to this shop a lot? Or, these type of conversations, and that would get them to talk to you and they will like you. And that is one of the key principles of building trust.
So one thing that you touched on, if you don't